This little gem from 1996 might not be the first thing that comes to mind when talking about the Sega Saturn. The Legend of Oasis. The sequel to the Genesis classic Beyond Oasis didn't quite achieve the legendary status of its predecessor, but it still carved out a loyal fanbase. Released during a turbulent time for Sega, The Legend of Oasis had the misfortune of landing on a system that was already struggling to compete with the PlayStation and N64. But for those lucky enough to dive into this Arabian Nights-inspired world, the game delivered a rich and rewarding experience. The Legend of Oasis is a classic tale of good versus evil, steeped in the mysticism of an ancient world. You step into the sandals of Leon, a young warrior chosen to inherit the Golden Armlet, a powerful artifact with the ability to summon elemental spirits. It's a heavy mantle to bear, as the armlet's power comes with a purpose: to stop the wielder of the rival Silver Armlet, who seeks to plunge the land of Oasis into chaos and darkness. The game wastes no time pulling you into its richly imagined world. Right from the opening cutscene, you're thrust into the middle of a conflict that feels both grand and personal. Leon's mission is clear: to gather the elemental spirits, unlock the full power of the Golden Armlet, and prevent the Silver Armlet's sinister schemes. Each of the elemental spirits Leon must awaken ties directly into the game's world-building and puzzles. From the fiery Efreet to the aquatic Ditto, each spirit not only expands Leon's arsenal but also reveals more about the lore of Oasis. What makes The Legend of Oasis special is how it uses its story to draw players into its world. Instead of bombarding you with lengthy dialogue or cutscenes, the game relies on atmosphere and discovery to tell its tale. In true 90s RPG fashion, The Legend of Oasis keeps its storytelling straightforward but effective. It's an adventure that feels timeless, with a narrative that complements the gameplay rather than overshadowing it. And even now, decades later, the story's themes of courage, sacrifice, and the eternal struggle between light and darkness still resonate. If you've played Beyond Oasis on the Sega Genesis, you'll feel right at home with the gameplay of The Legend of Oasis. It takes the fast-paced action RPG mechanics of its predecessor and cranks everything up a notch. At its heart, the game is all about exploration, combat, and clever use of elemental powers. But unlike many RPGs of its time, The Legend of Oasis puts a premium on real-time action and player skill, making every encounter feel dynamic and rewarding. Leon is a brawler through and through. His melee combat is fluid and responsive, allowing you to string together combos, execute charged attacks, and even pull off slick dodges when the going gets tough. Leon's arsenal extends beyond his sword. Throughout the game, you'll find a range of weapons like bows and bombs, each adding its own layer of strategy. The real star of The Legend of Oasis is the Golden Armlet and the elemental spirits it summons. Leon can call upon 6 unique spirits, each tied to a different element: fire, water, shadow, wind, and so on. These spirits aren't just gimmicks, they're integral to both combat and puzzle solving. You might need to light a series of torches with Efreet, freeze a stream with Daito, or use shadow to slip through a narrow gap. The world of Oasis is sprawling, with interconnected areas that beg to be explored. Think of it as a cousin to the Zelda series with plenty of secrets tucked away in every corner. You'll backtrack to previous locations with new powers in hand, uncovering hidden rooms, treasure chests, and shortcuts. While the game isn't strictly open world, its non-linear structure encourages you to explore at your own pace. This design works beautifully with the progression system, as unlocking new spirits and abilities feels like the perfect excuse to revisit earlier areas. No action RPG would be complete without memorable boss fights, and The Legend of Oasis delivers in spades. Each boss is a unique test of your combat skills and your ability to think on your feet. These encounters often require clever use of your spirits, making them as much about strategy as raw power. Whether it's a towering beast with a glaring weak point or a cunning foe that keeps you on your toes, every boss battle feels epic and satisfying. The gameplay of The Legend of Oasis is a masterclass in blending action and adventure. It's fast, it's smart, and it's endlessly satisfying. Every swing of Leon's sword, every puzzle solved, and every spirit summoned adds to a game that feels as fresh today as it did in 1996. The Legend of Oasis truly flexed the power of the Sega Saturn. At a time when many developers were chasing the 3D trend, this game doubled down on stunning 2D art, showcasing just how gorgeous sprite-based visuals could be. Combine that with a soundtrack that perfectly captures the mystical and adventurous vibe of the story, and you've got an audiovisual experience that's hard to forget. Every pixel of the game feels painstakingly crafted, with richly detailed environments that bring the world of Oasis to life. Ancient ruins, lush forests, fiery caverns, and tranquil water temples all feel distinct, giving each area its own identity. The vibrant color palette only enhances this effect, making the game a visual treat that still holds up remarkably well today. The character sprites are equally impressive, with Leon and his foes animated in fluid, lifelike motions. Whether it's Leon swinging his sword, a spirit unleashing its powers, or enemies crumbling in defeat, every movement feels dynamic and responsive. The game makes brilliant use of lighting, particle effects, and transparency, creating a magical atmosphere that draws you in. Fire flickers realistically, water ripples and sparkles, and shadows dance across the ground. These subtle details make the game feel alive, immersing you in its world. Composed by Yuzo Koshiro, the soundtrack of The Legend of Oasis is pure magic. The music perfectly complements the game's Arabian Nights-inspired setting. The melodies are equal parts adventurous and mysterious, blending orchestral and traditional Middle Eastern influences to create something truly unique. Each track feels like it's telling a story, pulling you deeper into the world of Oasis. One of the standout aspects of the music is how well it matches the tone of each area. Peaceful villages are accompanied by gentle, soothing tunes, while tense dungeons feature ominous, suspenseful tracks that keep you on edge. Boss battles, of course, crank up the intensity with dramatic, pulse-pounding themes that make you feel the stakes of the fight. What makes The Legend of Oasis's graphics and sound so impressive is how well they've aged. While many games from the Saturn era show their age, this game's dedication to high-quality 2D art and a timeless soundtrack keeps it feeling fresh. It's the kind of game that reminds you why so many players still adore the pixel art and chiptune aesthetics of the 90s. While The Legend of Oasis might not have reached the towering heights of gaming's biggest franchises, its legacy is one of quiet reverence and nostalgic fondness. Let's start with the Sega Saturn itself, a console that's remembered as much for its struggles as its triumphs. By 1996, the Saturn was already fighting an uphill battle against the PlayStation and Nintendo 64, and The Legend of Oasis launched into this challenging market. That said, those who owned a Saturn often cite The Legend of Oasis as one of the system's standout titles. It became one of those you-had-to-be-there experiences, a game that exemplified the kind of niche excellence the Saturn was known for. As the sequel to Beyond Oasis, this game had some big shoes to fill. While opinions vary on which entry in the series is superior, most fans agree that The Legend of Oasis successfully expanded on its predecessor's formula. It refined the combat, deepened the puzzle mechanics, and expanded the world, creating an experience that felt like a natural evolution. Today, The Legend of Oasis enjoys a well-deserved cult status. Retro gaming enthusiasts continue to sing its praises, sharing memories of their adventures with Leon and the Golden Armlet. One of the bittersweet aspects of The Legend of Oasis's legacy is that it marked the end of the Oasis series. Sega never revisited the world of Oasis or its characters, leaving fans to wonder what a third installment could have looked like. With the rise of HD remakes and spiritual successors, there's always hope that Beyond Oasis and The Legend of Oasis might one day receive a new lease on life, whether through a remaster or a full-blown sequel. The Legend of Oasis remains a triumph of its time, a game that captured the best of what the Sega Saturn had to offer. Its lush visuals, atmospheric music, and rewarding gameplay ensure it's not just a product of the 90s, but a timeless piece of gaming history. For those who missed it back then, it's never too late to pick up a Saturn or find another way to experience this cult classic. Because once you step into the world of Oasis, you'll see why it's still remembered as one of Sega's hidden masterpieces.